So tonight we're here for bookkeeping and accounting for real estate investing. James doesn't need to show up until Christmas. It's basically what this looks like. So next week we're doing real estate investor hot seats. We just talked about at least 3, if not 4. It's your job, James, to call Ty and ask him to be here. That action item is now yours. And then the week after that, apparently I'm teaching The Millionaire Real Estate Investor. How many of you read that book? It's the blue book. It's what we commonly refer to as the blue book. If you haven't read it, it's one of the few books I would recommend you keep on your bookshelf. You could read a lot of real estate books and you'll be like, oh, I don't ever need this one again. That one, I would suggest you read it once and then a year later read it again. You will gain more knowledge from it. So I'll be teaching that. The next week, I'm not sure what I'm teaching, how to achieve financial success for real estate investors. There was a class that was literally the first class I ever taught in this room that was that, so I will probably teach that and add some stuff. So if you were not here the very first week we taught in the Board of Realtors room, you've never seen this class. It's like, what year? What that class was? I didn't remember. Yeah, what year was that? Like 3 years ago, 4 years ago. The week after that, I'm teaching CapEx the silent killer. So if any of you are interested in buying properties that are $30,000 to $60,000 to $100,000 and you're looking in different markets, don't miss this class because this will open your eyes to what CapEx is. And if you're not buying those properties, I wouldn't miss this either because it basically gives you a good idea of what capital expenditures do and how they affect your property's performance. And then finally, at the end of August, I'm teaching presenting a deal to partners. So for those of you, how many of you are interested in doing partnerships? Like half the room, or they're all like, this is how we raise our hands tonight. Hi, I'm raising my hand, kind of. How many of you are interested in doing partnerships with your hand above your head? Yeah, so it's about half the room, right? So this is a good way, if you're interested in doing partnerships, you're like, I don't have any money, or I can't get a loan, but I have a deal. This is an interesting way of how you would present your deal to partners in a way that will help make you successful in getting a partnership started. James, when are you teaching next? So tonight, basically just your name, and then the question of the night is, what do you use now for bookkeeping and accounting, and what is your least favorite thing about it? And Nick has the mic, so as long as it's on, you're good to start. This is why we need Tammy here, so that everything runs smoothly and James is on time.
My name is Nick Augustine. Very small real estate experience, only a couple of years. And I've currently switched over to a property manager, so I get that full printout. I still track some stuff with a spreadsheet that I did not get from Bigger Pockets.
That you didn't get from Bigger Pockets?
Yeah, this last class. You gave me a hard time about that.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I'm Kevin, and I'm just starting out, so I'm giving it a shot on Excel.
I'm Grace, and I'm also using Excel.
What's your least favorite thing about this? That's the question. That's what we want to know, is what do you hate about your current system?
Doing it.
Doing it. There you go. Settled.
I'm Rumpel, and
I'm Dave.
we are investors and we are beginners. So we use CPAs and accountants and QuickBooks for bookkeeping, and the least favorite thing is to wait for their replies after asking them a couple questions like, what do we do about this now? And just wait for their replies.
You're asking QuickBooks people, or you're asking who?
Who are you
So the
CPA.
CPA,
Oh, your
and
CPA.
accountant. Yeah.
So your CPA is not responsive.
Very slowly.
No. Consider finding a new CPA.
Munir, and a little bit of real estate experience, but still got plenty to learn. I guess right now, well, Denise is coming. I use Denise for...
And this is Denise. Here's the microphone. She can answer the questions.
What do we do? What do we do for bookkeeping and accounting? I use Denise.
What's your least favorite part of that?
Oh, not gonna answer that one.
Smart.
Bob, beginner. Basically, spreadsheet. Looking for a CPA. I think I found one. Not sure.
Hi, I'm Jackie. I'm just here to learn. I use Excel a lot, so I'm learning more.
Hi, I'm Bob. I use our in-house CPA, and there's nothing I dislike about our current arrangement.
That's me. And I use Excel because I love journal entries. I love doing it all manual.
Nice.
Hi, I'm Michelle, and we use Dropbox and your bookkeeping spreadsheet.
Oh, nice.
So what do you not like about it?
Yeah. Because James has volunteered to fix it.
There's nothing I really dislike about those systems. I would just say still managing like the paper copies, either scanning them in and then still keeping hard copies and filing those is a pain.
Amen.
So it's like, well, I could just throw it away since I have electronic copies, but then I get paranoid just in case, so then I keep them.
Just in case the entire internet goes down. Yes.
I'm Austin, and I like my current filing system.
I'm Denise, and I kind of developed my own system very similar to yours. I use Excel spreadsheets, very simple ones. I should probably switch to yours. I want to switch to QuickBooks. I just haven't gotten there yet.
Nice.
Hi, I'm Nolan. I'm moving out of my first investment property tomorrow, so I haven't had any expenses yet. So I like it.
I like not tracking anything.
I'm Tanya. I'm currently switching over to QuickBooks, and it's been a process. Luckily, they help with training. I have one property currently that's in Illinois, and I'm looking to invest here in Colorado.
Nice.
I'm Dwayne. I don't have any investment experience, so I don't have anything yet, but I'm assuming I'll use Excel.
Julie, and I've got some real estate experience, and I used to do it all longhand and myself, but now I've got an accountant and
Nice.
management.
I'm Carol, and I don't have anything, so I'm just here learning.
Perfect.
I'm Lynn, and I still do it all longhand. And what I don't like is filing it so that where I can find it again.
I'm Michael, and just beginning real estate. We were using QuickBooks and just struggling with it, so we got a CPA this last year. They've been taking care of it for us.
I'm Joe. I am a long-term buy and hold investor for single family. My bookkeeping is, Excel spreadsheets and a very beloved CPA who keeps me in line. And my least favorite thing is, I agree, receipts, filing, all that fun stuff, yeah.
Nice. Go to Allison. Then we'll come back.
I'm Allison, and my least favorite thing about bookkeeping was if I got something wrong, having to slough back through everything and trying to find it.
My name is Selena. I'm actually a resource for insurance. I have beginner real estate experience, and right now I'm using an Excel spreadsheet, so I'm here to hopefully learn a different method to do tracking.
Perfect.
My name is Nathan, and we are just getting started in real estate investing, so we don't really have any experience, but I assume we'll use a Excel sheet, but open to suggestions and hopefully starting it out right.
Tracking is, as long as you're tracking somehow, it's better than not.
My name is Lindsay, and same as him.
Perfect.
My name is Julie, and I'm new to real estate too, so I have a lot to learn. And right now, I just have an envelope where I put receipts in, and I'm open to suggestions on what to use.
Perfect.
John, I just use Quicken, and it seems to work pretty good.
Use what?
Quicken.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm James Orr, real estate broker. I have a lot of real estate experience with some stuff. I use Tammy.
Are all realtors late? Is that like a thing?
You know, for a lot of realtors, it is a thing, actually. It's unfortunate, but yes, it is a thing. Tammy does all our stuff. It's very expensive, though. I mean, you only basically get a Qdoba budget out of the, no matter how much money you make, so it's kind of weird. But it is a pretty big Qdoba budget. I agree with you.
Please, he can take 4 people to Qdoba and pay $2.86.
That is not true.
Because they know him. Yes.
You are ruining my sponsorship opportunities by saying this stuff.
He's got the number 3 Qdoba card. Like
That is
ever.
true. I do have the number 3 card.
Yeah, like they're like, oh, you're number 3. You get 3 free burritos every visit. It's basically how it works for him. Yeah. So, for those, how many of you guys are new tonight? This is your first class. 1, 2, 3, 3. Perfect. So, for those of you that don't know me, I'm Brian Williams. I'm a long-term buy and hold investor in Northern Colorado. And tonight, if you're hoping to learn about QuickBooks or Quicken, you're sorely out of luck. So, bookkeeping and accounting, we're going to cover kind of how I used to store my stuff, how I stored it after I got a property manager, and then I'll tell you a little bit about how I do it now. So there's kind of 3 different methods, kind of growing through buying your first property, buying your second property, and then turning them over to a property manager, and what changes I made, because it definitely gets simpler because the property manager has to do a lot of that bookkeeping for you. And then what you give your accountant at tax time. We're also going to cover kind of the physical storage, the problems that you guys just mentioned about, oh, I've got these receipts, where do I put them? How long do I need to keep them? Because that stuff's annoying, right? It's just how many boxes and filing cabinets do you need? But really, this is all personal preference. You could go do it longhand and do it all yourself and do your tax return and basically only spend your time. Or the flip side of that is you can hire someone where you literally hand them everything and they download their bank accounts and they do all the bookkeeping for you and they do their tax return for you. And it's really just a matter of time versus cost, like most things in life, right? You can spend your time trying to find deals, or you can pay James to find deals for you, and you spend money instead of time. So a lot of this is personal preference. I don't really care what you use. It's like it's too far away. So the easiest, right? Hire a bookkeeper and accountant, be done. I think Barbie's looking for clients, isn't that right? So talk to Barbie after class.
She says she loves doing it. She loves doing ledger entries.
Every year she's like, I'm going to tell you I don't want clients, but I really do. So talk to Barbie after class for that. It's perfect. QuickBooks, right? How many of you guys have any experience with QuickBooks? Leave your hands up. Put your hands down if you know.
Simon Says. You got to do Simon Says.
Yeah, I didn't say Simon Says. So how many of you use QuickBooks ever?
Raise your hands
How
high.
many of you like QuickBooks? Yeah. So I tried QuickBooks. I tried 2 different systems in QuickBooks, and I was just like, nope, this is not for me. So there you go. You're going to have to like
advance
something. It's all right. So QuickBooks is double entry accounting, right? Something comes out of here, you have to make an entry over here for where it went, right? Which is fine. That's not terribly difficult to use. Most CPAs are going to use QuickBooks. QuickBooks Online used to suck. QuickBooks Online has apparently gotten much, much better. So if you're using the online version, it's much better. Why is this now? How much further can I pull this over there? Until it unplugs?
A lot, apparently.
Oh, there we go. That'll do. Or it won't. So there's also Quicken Rental Property Manager. Is this what you're using? Or are you just using straight up Quicken? Yeah, so this was something that came out several years ago. And it basically, from all practical purposes, it was like if you only had like one property, it would be okay for you. But if you had multiple properties and were trying to do stuff, then this was not a great product. I haven't evaluated it in like 4 years, so it may be great. But if QuickBooks Online caught up with QuickBooks and you're looking to adopt the system, I would probably pick QuickBooks. All the property managers are using something completely different, right? They're using Buildium, AppFolio, Propertyware, and I actually looked into using that because their systems are really awesome. If you're going to manage all your own stuff, it gives you all the access, all the reports that you see your property manager generating for you. It's got all that stuff built in, so it's pretty good.
You know, when I looked at those, you needed to have a certain number of properties for it to be worthwhile. It's not really good for one.
Yes, you're not doing it with 1 to 3. You want a portfolio of 10 at least, probably a lot more. The last option I think on here is my tracking spreadsheet, which you can get tonight if you would like, or wherever James is going to post it.
Yes.
And you'll see that all about that later. Did you put a new battery in this thing? This thing sucks tonight.
No, but I need to get a new one for you.
Or, as many of you have done, you just decided to do your own system, which is great, as long as it works. And if you already use a system and you're totally happy with it, I'm not about here to convince you to switch to my spreadsheet. I could care less. You guys use what works for you. I built something that if you ask me to make changes, the answer will be a hard no, because the formulas are really crazy. But it's pretty cool what it does, and I've actually used it. I took a modified version of this spreadsheet and used it for my family budget. So, how are we doing? Still doesn't work? Did you? I don't know what you did here. All right. Now it works. So online storage, right? A big component of today is having access to your docs everywhere. If you ask me, hey, what did you buy that property for? I can go get my phone and I can look it up and I can pull up the contract and say, oh, look, this is the date I bought it. This is when I bought it. And I use Dropbox almost exclusively for this stuff. You can go to Dropbox.com. You can access this from any computer, anywhere you want, or your phone.
Except when you're at my house and trying to look up something for
Except
James.
when you're at James's new house, then you can't access anything because he now lives in the middle of nowhere and he doesn't have internet or running water.
Hey, the guy was there to install internet at the time.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
The guy was there to install cable and internet, and he couldn't even do it because they were like, the cables are not long enough to make it out this far. So, and he was early, unlike other people I know who are late to class. He was like half an hour early. So, Dropbox is secure storage. How many of you are familiar with Dropbox or use Dropbox already? So if you don't use Dropbox, you probably should be using Dropbox, whether it's for your important files on your computer, because I will tell you, if your computer crashes and you do not have it backed up, your life is going to be hell. Like, it is no fun. Imagine having partnership documents and all sorts of other backups of real estate stuff and data, and then it all just vanishes and you can't get it back. Now you have to recreate it. It's going to suck. Someone I know may or may not have had that exact problem. You can sync it to multiple computers. So if you're working with a team, or you're working with a spouse, or you're working in a partnership with friends, like all of my stuff syncs between Beth and I, and then in my partnerships, where they need access, it syncs between just that folder, syncs between their computer as well. So everything is always kind of live and active. You can share individual files or folders. It's very easy. So if a lender says, hey, I need all of your documents, I need your REO, I need your mortgage statement, blah, 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 put it in a new folder, send them a link in email, and that way you don't have to send 300 megs of stuff through email. So very convenient. I just said that. Yep, stop messing with email size limits. Does Gmail still have those, James?
They do.
Yeah. Shared folders are awesome, which I already talked about. So here's pricing. So you're like, hey, how much is it, Brian? So 2 gigs are free. James, would 2 gigs suffice for you?
No, it would not.
No? How many trillions of terabytes have you used up?
I have over a terabyte.
Yeah. So 2 terabytes, right? $12 a month or $119, $120 a year, which you might be like, I don't really want to spend that. But if you put all your stuff on there and just sync it to your local computer, that $120, if you ever crash, is well worth it. This only includes 30-day version history, which sucks. Because 30 days go by and then you figure out, oh, I didn't want to delete that file, it's gone. So they used to have extended version history, which is $39 a year extra, which I have and I'm subscribed to, but you can no longer get. Sucks.
It's pretty awesome, by the way.
Yes, and it's a 1 year instead of the 30 days. Easily, like I'm never turning that option off, right? Ever.
No.
So problem is you can't get it anymore. The professional actually just moved their 90-day to 180-day, so it's not bad. It's a little more expensive, but you get an extra terabyte in case you need an extra terabyte of storage. Probably not, unless you're James. Then you might. But 180-day version history, just so you know, I had this, and before I added the version history, I kept all of my email in an offline email folder, like literally from when I first had email, not just anything I wanted. And so it was like a 30 gig file. Moved over, bought a new computer. 30 days went by, I deleted it off Dropbox because I already had it up and running on the new computer. And then the new computer decided to die. Like a horrible death, couldn't access the hard drive. They were like, the only way you're gonna be able to fix this is to basically format the drive. And they had a tech come out. And I was like, that's like 30 years of my life and emails I can never reproduce. And so I called Dropbox and I said, I know it's past the 30 days, but can you get me this file? And luckily they were able to get it. But in some cases, they could have been like, yeah, it's been overwritten and it's gone.
I had another client who called up because they had lost a bunch of files and Dropbox could not retrieve it.
Mm-hmm. And in that case, it contained like partnership data where spreadsheets of purchases and stuff like that, where it's like, this is how much this partner's been paid. Trying to recreate that is a nightmare. I never really heard any more about that. After
Yeah, I
that.
think it
Ongoing nightmare. So, online folder structure. So this is just the nitty gritty of how I decided to do my business, right? I have a top level folder called real estate investment folders, and basically any other separate partnerships, I have a separate top level folder, right? Next level is basically the address of each property, as you would expect. This thing is...
Yeah, I already sent myself an email to get a new one.
Yes, we can. So essentially, inside each property's folder, this is what I have. So I've got folder 1 for purchase docs. I add a folder 1.1 or 1.2 or 1.3. Some of them have quite a few refinances. But if you refinance, perfect. If you sold it, it's like 1.2 sale, right? But that folder contains all of the documents that led up to the purchase, all the contracts, all the title, preliminary title commitments, all that stuff, right? Trust docs, so if you came to asset protection, that's the folder that has your trust docs in it. Property info, this is all of my pictures, my video. Like anytime somebody moves in or moves out, I go take pictures, I go take video, like we discussed in tenant screening classes. So that's what's in property info. If there were pictures from the listing when I bought it, those are in there. That just came in really handy yesterday for me. The property manager was like, we don't have any inside photos. And I'm like, oh, I do, here you go. So, and I just sent him a link, right? So easy. Mortgage, this is like your monthly mortgage statement, your escrow, annual escrow disbursement, or annual escrow changes that happen, anything related to your lender. Taxes, obviously property taxes, insurance, HOA, expenses. So this is every expense that I have for the property. Basically, it's that receipt gets filed in the expenses folder. And then tenant and property management. This is, if I'm managing it, it's just tenant, and it has a folder for the tenant's name, has all the documents and any communication that goes to the tenant. If it's property management, it has the property management statements. Any questions on that? That was one big breath. So all the files basically get named in a very specific way. And if you partner with me, I will force you to name the files like this, as my partners have found out. And they're like, they like, don't put a space here. I'm like, no, you got to go back and rename that. It needs to be correct. So it's basically year, month, date, / in this case, I think it's 1234 Main Street / whatever the file is, right? If this is mortgage statement or 2019 tax assessment, whatever that is. James is laughing. James names his files the exact same way.
Yeah, I started this whole thing, so now you're like enforcing my file standard naming conventions.
Yeah, and so if you use James and you go to close on a house, Tammy will just send you all of the files you need in the correct naming convention format, because that's how they name their files. So it makes it pretty easy. So there's an example. Nothing, this is not a rocket science class. Almost all files get scanned and saved as PDFs, right? So every file that you get, whether it's from closing, from a tenant, a lease, whatever it is, I'm scanning that in and I'm saving it somewhere in this file system. And then whether or not you need to keep it, we'll talk about in a minute. People last time asked, hey, what do you use to scan it in? If you can find a really fast scanner that's really cheap, I would highly recommend it. I use this, and it's fairly slow, right? So it does do double-sided, but it'll take a while. If you stick a insurance document that's 200 pages in there, it's like see in half an hour, right? But it works. So you don't need anything fancy. Separate high-level folder for LLCs. This is debatable in how you want to set up your business, right? You may decide, you know what, Brian? Here's my real estate investing folder, and then under that, I'm going to have an LLC folder, and under that, I'm going to have the properties that are in that, right? 1234 Main, 3456 4th Street, whatever, and then the second LLC, you're going to do the same. That's fine.
And the alternative to doing that is you could have double indexing. So you could have a shortcut instead of the actual file folder where you list all your properties. That way, in case you're trying to find which property is in which LLC, you can do that and it will link back to the one under the LLC.
Yep. So set up what works for you as far as top level. But I found that this pretty much covers every document all the time. I've not had any exceptions. So.
And this seems like overkill if you're talking about 1 or 2 properties. Really where this becomes super important is when you start getting above like 10.
Yeah, even, I mean, if you're managing 5 or 6 properties, it's important. And so if you start and you're just like, I'm just going to have one folder called 1234 Main Street, I'm going to put everything in there, and it's going to be like, I'm not going to rename them, it's going to be scan 1, scan 2, scan 3, scan 4. Good luck, right? You're like, I need the settlement statement. Right? That's no fun. Like, and there are times when I've scanned a bunch of stuff in and I'm like, I know it's for this property, but then I don't go rename it yet, and I'm like, oh, I need one of them. Click, 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 open them all.
Side note as to why we name the files the way we do is because if you're looking for the settlement statement for 1234 Main Street, you could type in 1234 Main Street and then settlement, and it will show the files that are named that.
Yep. The LLC one, for me, the reason I have it separate is it doesn't get a lot of use, right? Once you create your LLC and once you have your operating agreement, that's the stuff that goes in there. But other than that, it's a periodic report once a year for most people. So, and I didn't want an added layer here, so that's what I did. But I would suggest you start the way you intend to finish, right? If you start and you just shove it all in one folder, you have to go back and change it all later. It's much easier if you're just starting. So if you're brand new, you don't own any homes, boom, just use this. It's easy. You now have a solution. Non-Dropbox online storage. So not only do you get files, you get other communication from tenants, lenders, realtors, other people, right? Emails is a primary one. Tenant communications. Do you want to save these or not? Yes. Why? So when they sue you, yes, exactly. Because you want to be able to say, hey, this was our agreement, this is what we said, here's the email to prove it, right? So buying and selling information, whether it's your attorney, your CPA, the realtor, the title company, whoever it is, right? You want to keep that stuff at least for some period of time. HOA communications, they send you a violation. Hey, I resolved the violation in email. Great, but then I delete the email and then like, hey, you didn't resolve this. You're like, oh, but I did. You agreed on this. No, I don't have record of that. You want to have that record. Etc. So you want to back up your email regularly and store it on Dropbox, right? Send it all to an offline storage file, back it up on Dropbox, and then never delete it. Don't be like Brian, never delete it, because you don't want to lose it. What is going on with this?
I have a note to order a brand new one. So.
Text. So how many of you are noticing a trend that tenants like to text you and they don't want to email you and they don't want to talk to you on the phone? Is this annoying or what? It's like, how about you call me or just send me an email? But they don't. They're like, hey, faucet's broken. Okay, great. Thank you for the great interaction. So how do you keep track of your texts? What do? How do you store the information? Okay, great. I'll have somebody out to fix it. Great. They came out and they fixed it. And then later they say, oh, you never fixed that. How are you going to prove it? How are you backing up your texts? What are you guys currently doing?
If you use Google Voice will actually show up in your email.
So if you're using an iPhone and you're not using Google Voice, how are you guys backing your texts up? iCloud? Barbie?
I don't do that.
You don't back them up?
Well, I do back them up, but it's kind of archaic how I do it.
You photo them?
No. I send them to my email, and then
Oh.
I put it in a Word document, and I have all of them, like...
Sure. So, yeah, I mean
but I could never prove, I guess.
that you didn't alter it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think at that point, you know, it's going to be, well, here's the exchange on my phone, go to the phone company, right, and really get the records from them. That's going to be the only full-scale proof. But,
Does the phone company save those, and for how long?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
I'm sure. Yeah, there's got to be some
There's
statute.
probably need to be some type of subpoena or something
Yeah.
weird.
So I would suggest that you either back these up regularly to iCloud or whatever, or back them up. You could take a picture of each text that's really important and back those photos up on Dropbox, right? Put them in the tenants folder so you know where they are, right? Because a lot of this communication is happening on text now, and that sucks. Phone numbers. In my phone, basically there's a company name, so I will like put the person's name and then I'll have the address and company name so that when somebody calls me and I'm like, who is this? Right? It's like, oh, that's 1234 Main Street calling and it's the tenant that's in there. So that's been super helpful for me. That way especially when you don't have 2 tenants. If you have 15 tenants, you're like, I don't remember which house that is. Right? This helps you immediately go, I know what house we're talking about. I'm not going to sound dumb to the tenant. Physical storage. How many of you have a filing cabinet at home for real estate or for anything? Yes. How many of you have multiple filing cabinets? How many of you gave some away when you moved? How many of you still don't know how long it takes to drive from your new house to here? I told you I was going to get it in several times. So I think you're probably going to need some form of physical filing system. For you, that could be like one of those little totes that allows you to drop files in until you outgrow it, right? You don't need to go buy a big filing cabinet, but you're probably going to want to keep some of the documents. Do you need to keep every receipt from, hey, here's my water bill, I paid it this month? Do you need to keep all of those? Like in the beginning, you're probably keeping everything, right? I know this because that's what I did. And then at some point you look at your filing cabinet and go, what is this giant folder of crap? And then you pare it down. So you're probably going to keep an actual copy of your deed. You're probably going to keep an actual copy of your note. You're probably definitely keeping all of your actual copies of your lease, move-in inspections from tenants, kind of anything of tenant communication, at least until they move out, plus a year or 2, right? Until their security deposit has been refunded to them and they've not objected and not complained and not taken you to court. You're definitely keeping those. I have a legal-sized filing cabinet. I'm sure you guys don't care. What I used to do, so this presentation I think I've given once a year, like every year for 4 years. And so 4 years ago, I was managing all of my own properties. So I used to have 3 tabs for each property. And I would do one left, one middle, and one right. The left one was basically property address with all the purchase docs, right, which would get used a lot in the beginning. The middle one was the mortgage. Right? So anything related to the lender that usually get used about once a month, statement comes in, escrow disbursement, whatever. And then I, at one point, had a second middle tab, which was expenses. And that's basically anything you're spending money on the property. Right? So you had new carpet installed or whatever. And then the right tab was essentially who's living in the property, the tenant. So I've got kind of how I purchased the property. I've got stuff that's ongoing that's related to me, and I've got tenant information, all separate. That way, if a tenant calls or I need to deal with a lease, I know exactly where it is. In multifamily, obviously, you've got a row of that third folder. Fourplex, 4 folders. Or put them all in the same one and confuse yourself. As tenants move out, I basically would take that folder, which is why it was separate, and I would take that folder out of that drawer, and I would put it in the bottom drawer where I just have an archive of all the tenants I've ever had.
Is it alphabetical?
Is it?
The tenant archive.
No, it's date.
It's date.
Yeah, but it has the property address on the thing, right? So, yeah, I've never had to use it.
Sure.
So it's not like it's 8 filing cabinets worth of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I have separate folders for each LLC. So if you're doing asset protection, you have a bunch of LLCs. I have one folder for each LLC that has the operating agreement, the periodic reports as they get filed, the EIN number from the IRS, kind of all of that stuff. Any questions on that? Is this like the most exciting class you've ever been to? Barbie's like, yeah. Like, you're a bad liar. So then I hired a property manager, and I basically pared down, right? So once you've got a property manager handling most of this stuff, you may not need nearly as much. So now each property gets 1 folder because I'm like, I don't really need 3. And it's basically just property name docs, right? It could have just been the property name, I suppose. So this basically for me normally has all the stuff from closing that I thought was important, my note, my deed of trust, maybe my settlement statement, the deed, stuff like that that I think is important to keep. And then any other files that I feel like I need to keep. So if I'm managing that property still, I would definitely have a lease in there with the tenant, right? I would have that in the same folder because I just pared down to everything in 1 folder. And I only keep what I feel is essential. So when I scan in an electric bill and it's paid, it goes to the shredder. When I scan in, anything like that, it's getting shredded. I'm only keeping things that I think, gosh, I might actually need a copy of this physically signed, like the lease with the tenant, right? I have an inked page with a signature. However, I'm sure in 5 years from now, we're all going to be using something like DocuSign for leases, and it's just going to be like, well, I have the DocuSign digital copy. I don't even need the lease anymore, right? So, we use DocuSign for buying and selling houses. It's just not something that most landlords outside of property management companies are using. James.
I heard today that they're going toward electronic closings. The title rep told me that.
Oh, that'll be the day.
Yep.
The lender's never going to like that. Lenders like your ink all the time, even on silly forms. So about every year or two, I look at that folder and I go, this folder is giant. Why is it so big? And so I go back through and I basically pare out everything that I know I wouldn't need. So like for me, I'll keep the mortgage statements for every 12 months. And then at the end of 12 months, I'll just take all those mortgage statements out and shred them. And in case you don't feel like shredding or you don't have a shredder, you can take a box of stuff you want shredded to like a UPS store and pay them by the pound to have them shred it for you. So, or you can pay kids to shred it in your shredder one sheet at a time. But the buzzing gets old.
You should not have your kids operating a shredder, just
Yes.
for the record. Brian.
Really?
Yes,
Have you seen a bunch of issues with kids sticking their hands in a shredder?
Yes.
Is that a thing?
They get their shirt caught in there, and next thing you know, they're like going into the shredder. Yeah.
I think you're confusing shredder with like farm equipment, where people get scalped by the farm equipment.
You must have a really weak shredder if you're not afraid of your kids using it.
I am not. Yeah. So like I said, I even went this far for the properties that I still manage, which is not very many, but I was like, one folder is enough. And most of the folders aren't thicker than this. So if you have mounds and mounds and mounds and mounds of documents that are hanging around, I would highly suggest that you spend a day or a week or however long it takes and scan everything in, get it stored on Dropbox, and basically move forward into the 21st century. In my particular case, the properties I have will actually likely be sold in a few years. Otherwise, I may still have 3 folders. But I don't have 30 years of tenant stuff to pile up in that folder that I care about. So James is like, oh, you're selling properties. So buying a property, what happens? All the emails that you get until the purchase is finalized or forever, right? Basically, you want to save all of those. And then any attachments you get, I immediately take those. You get the email, it's like, here's your preliminary title commitment. I take that out, I save it, and I drop it in the folder. I don't need the email anymore, right? But I'll probably wait until I'm closed to delete the email. That way, if I want to reply and say, hey, there's an error, I don't have to go find all the email addresses of the people that were on the email. Scan and name any and all documents as you get them. I can't stress this enough. If you wait and wait and wait, this will become a daunting task. There was a point in time where I refinanced 9 properties in the same day, and then I waited like 4 months to scan everything in. It was miserable. It's like 2 days of misery trying to scan it all in, file it, both physically and digitally. So don't do that. You're going to get all sorts of stuff, so whatever comes in, file it.
I was just going to ask if you have a separate email for all of your real estate stuff.
I don't. I just all comes to my personal email. So I try to unsubscribe from everything for my personal email, so I don't get that much a day anymore. But when you're doing a closing or you're doing multiple closings, you're getting a lot of stuff, right, in that month or 2 months when you're doing the closing. So, yeah. I do know people who do have separate emails entirely for anything related to their real estate, and they're just like, send it here if it's related to that. And I would just rather not have another email. Digitally file in the appropriate folders. If there's any income and expenses entering in the tracking spreadsheet, which I'm going to show you in a minute, consider saving the photos from the listing, which I mentioned just saved me, right? I can't get in, tenant has stuff in all the units in the building. I can't go in and take pictures. However, there are pictures from the listing, so we get to use them to advertise. Get digital copies at closing. Do not do this. Get digital copies at closing. Otherwise, you're taking home a stack of paper and you get to scan it in instead of them scan it in with their scanner, which is like this. Doop, 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 doop. And yours is like this. So Get digital copies. There was a time when James is like, I'll take digital. I'm like, I'll take paper. Me, right? And then I'm like, this is stupid. Like, come into the next generation.
And you can get both. You can ask them for both the physical copy and the digital.
Yes. So this is an example of what's inside the purchase docs folder for me. I obviously removed the prop, but this is actually the example. So you can see there's a lot of stuff going on, right? But it's all stuff that's useful. Hey, you know, how much do we pay for earnest money? Oh, earnest money, right? Oh, where's the settlement statement? Oh, there it is, right? What's the note? What's my HUD-1? Stuff that lenders are going to want from you later, right? Or your CPA is going to want from you later. So managing a property, right? Kind of the different phases. Bought a property, that's what you would do. Managing a property, tenant communication saved in the email folder, right? Or text on the phone. Back this up regularly. We already talked about this, or screenshot it. Just because the tenant moves out doesn't mean you can delete them. On my phone, I still have texts from a nasty tenant who was moved out like 3 years ago, and I'm just waiting because something's going to happen, right? So if you have any discrepancies, I would not delete those. They're backed up, but I'm like, it's still right there. I can still pull it up. You should ask an attorney, hey, what's the statute of limitations for this kind of stuff, right? Because I'm sure there is one. It's probably 7 years or 5 years, or maybe it's after you give them back their damage deposit plus so many years. I don't know, but I'm not taking any chances.
There is no statute of limitations for murder, though, in case you're wondering.
Are we talking about a murder of crows?
Not a murder of crows.
Okay. So each month, enter all your recurring items, right? Again, don't let this stuff pile up on you because it just kills you. Typically, it's not that much, right? If you're doing this in QuickBooks, you can set up recurring entries, right? Where you just go in and click the, hey, I'd like all those to happen again. I got rent, my mortgage, HOA, maybe utilities, but utilities are probably a different amount each month. But it's not that much. It will literally take you like 5 minutes maybe for the property a month, or you can wait a long time and then have to go back and dig through and see what things actually were. It'll take you a lot longer. For other income and expenses as they occur, you have the unit painted, you put new carpet in, you put a new roof on, you have an insurance claim, all of those kind of things, right? Enter those in the spreadsheet, download and save them, scan them as PDFs, right? Again, this is not a rocket science class. This is just a basic, here's how you can organize your life class. File digitally and physically if needed, and then on tenant turnover, like I said, in that property info folder, save all the pictures, save all the video that you take, save their move-out docs, right? So that you know when the new tenant comes in and says, hey, the sink doesn't work. And you're like, oh, well, I have a picture and it shows it worked, or I tested it when I walked through and I documented that. Now you know who to bill, old tenant or new tenant. All the application, credit report, new lease documents, move-in inspection from the new tenant, obviously, and that is basically what I did. Then I hired a property manager, and so you can imagine that managing the property got a lot easier. Right? I don't have nearly as many documents. So after they do it, basically every month I download my statement, and we have a whole class on how to review your statements. So if you haven't seen that, check that out. I don't know if it's up still or not, but
I think it just rolled off recently.
Just rolled off. Process any income and expenses they don't handle, right? So your property manager is typically handling everything except for your mortgage, maybe your HOA, and maybe a rogue utility bill here or there. You can ask your property manager to handle all three of those if you want, and they would, and then they'd show up on the statement. Might make your life easier, but I basically go through and process all of that stuff, enter it in the spreadsheet, obviously scan it, save it as a PDF, file it, and you can go through if you want, just so you can see how your property is running. If their statement's not good enough, you could take all of the entries that they have and enter them into this spreadsheet or enter them into QuickBooks, right? Very, very easily.
So out of an abundance of clarity, are you doing your spreadsheet in addition to the property manager doing their statements?
I do not enter all of their stuff in my spreadsheet.
Okay, so this is like a separate one just for the other outside the property manager?
Yeah,
stuff?
So when I went to a property manager, I pretty much stopped using my spreadsheet. Yep. Because they basically have everything except for like, here's 12 mortgage payments. Here's one HOA payment because I pay my HOA for the year one time in January for all the properties because I'm not dealing with monthly HOA. So here's an example. I checked my mail, like physical mail. I had a utility late payment notice and an HOA bill. And so what happens? I scan both documents because I don't want to get behind. I name them appropriately, boom and boom. I paid the HOA by check. I entered it in my check ledger, And then I entered the information for the HOA payment into the spreadsheet, which you'll see in a second. I filed both of those. Obviously, if it was a utility late payment, I emailed Joe Smith, right? Said, hey, you need to pay your utility bill. Or I emailed the property manager and I said, Joe Smith didn't pay his utility. Can you please pay it and bill it back to him? Right? And that happens all the time. I had one unit recently who just didn't want to put the electric in their name. And I'm like, force them to put the electric in their name. And they wouldn't do it. And I actually had to get down to the point where I was like, if they don't put electric in their name, I am going to turn it off. Right? I'm like, it's like, and then you will have to put it in your name to turn it back on. And they finally switched it, and then like a week later, they took it back out of their name. I'm like, isn't this more hassle than just leaving it in your name? Like, it's crazy. So that's how simple that could be. If you let your mail pile up, and this is like 4 months of mail, and you have to go through and do that, this sucks. If you do this, it's like 5 or 10 minutes once a week when you check your mailbox. Selling a property, last step. Get digital copies at closing. Don't scan them in yourself, just get digital copies. File any other last items as they come in from the property. If you've never sold a property and it's in an LLC, don't go closing the LLC like right after closing. Chances are high you're going to get a $5 refund from title. Oh, we overcharged you. The $5 that we always overcharge you on every closing. I'm like, can you just not do that? Like, just, you know, if you need $5 later, I'll pay you. But you'll probably get a refund from insurance, and all those still need your bank account and your LLC to be active and open. So don't close that stuff down. After that year's taxes are done, I actually take the digital folder and I move it to an archive folder so that it's not still in my list of current properties. If I close the LLC, I would do the same thing. And I'd archive the physical folder so that when I open my drawer, I don't have extra properties in there. So that's the before the spreadsheet walkthrough. Any questions on any of that? How many of you are bored out of your mind? There it is. See? This is literally, like, this class gets requested, like, a lot.
It surprises me every time somebody wants to see this class.
So this is not a normal class, just so everyone knows.
I'll give you a question.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, microphone.
All right, so I sold a house. I have all those closing documents. How long do I save those for?
I mean, I would file them, and then the ones that I would save are your deed of trust, your note, and then when you get the paid off note in mail later that shows, hey, thank you for paying off your note, and it gives you the actual form from the county that's stamped, I would save that forever, right? And I would also scan it in the moment I get it, but I would save that forever.
I have a more technical answer to that.
Perfect.
So did you sign the general warranty deed when you sold the property? Yeah, so if you sign a general warranty deed, you should keep that forever. Because a general warranty deed says that you warrant the deed of that property from when you owned it through the beginning of time. So you have all the obligations of that when you have a general warranty deed, so I'd save it forever. If you did a special warranty deed, there's less of a case to do that.
Yep.
We did a special class on that. It was like arguably the best class of the year where we talked about deed types for like 30 minutes. So go watch or listen to that.
So this is a spreadsheet I built over a long period of time. I learned all sorts of crazy formulas about Excel that I didn't want to know. And so James will put this up somewhere.
I was going to ask you if you have to manually adjust February.
I do not. I changed that specifically for tonight.
Really? That was the most recent update?
Yes, I did it literally earlier today because I was like, I'm not going to take any more flack for that. So there are 4 tabs. There's property report, which we'll get to. There's income and expense. I tried to make this as literally easy as possible. So as long as you can determine the difference between income and expense and you can fill in a few columns, you can use this spreadsheet very, very effectively. Basically, in the income column or in the income sheet, you would put income, any income you get. So rent, a refund, an insurance claim where you get a check, anything where you're getting income, it would go in here. And it doesn't have to just be for one property. And that's what I wanted with the spreadsheet was I wanted to be able to track a lot of properties, but all at the same time where I didn't have to care, oh, I got to open the spreadsheet for that property. I wanted to be able to just shove it all in one spreadsheet and have the spreadsheet sorted out. So you can see, if you can read this, right? This is 1234 Main Street. This is 5678 3rd Street. This is 9012 5th Street. And so it's literally, zoom in a little bit more. If you want to do a new entry, you would simply type a date It's December 1st already. This has a drop down for whatever properties are in there, and that's an Excel bug, not a me bug. So it's this property. This one also has a drop down. So this has a drop down of all the stuff that you could basically get money from. Rent, utility bill back, damage deposit forfeited, non-refundable pet fee, escrow refund, application fee, laundry, insurance proceeds, I don't know what the other one is, and utility refund. So we could say, oh, we got an application fee, and it was for James Orr, and he paid us $29.95 because we can't charge more than we're going to actually spend, and that's all you need to do. You've now entered your income. So do that for every property every month. Guess what expense looks like? It's exactly the same, right? Only the difference is you still have the same columns to choose from in property, but now in expense, we have quite a few more. Mortgage payment, very common. Advertising, auto and travel, cleaning, insurance, legal and professional fees. If you're really familiar with the forms that you fill out for taxes, these look exactly the same, right? These are the same categories. There's a reason, because taxes are going to be way easier. We've got management fees, mortgage interest, repairs and maintenance, supplies, taxes, utilities, capital improvements, HOA, assessments, appraisals, application fee, meetings, meals, and other education training, right? And then you can type a little description of what it was and enter the amount. That's all you need to do. So if you stuck all your income and all your expenses in this spreadsheet for the entire year, you would be very happy at the end of the year. The drop-down list tab, very quickly, I'll zoom in because I know you can't see this in the back. Here's the list of stuff that shows in the category list for income. Here's the stuff that shows for the expense. You can add properties as you grow. Here's data on your properties, right? And so you don't need to fill all of those in, but if you want to actually see some return numbers in the other sheet that I'm about to show you, filling some of this basic stuff in would be great. So it's also an easy way, hey, I have all my stuff in one place. How much did I pay for that property, right? Boom, all of them are in one place. At some point, the bank is going to ask you for an REO. This will be very close to getting you to an REO, which is a real estate owned schedule. Any questions on any of those tabs before I show you the final tab?
So to be clear, most people are not going to be adding or removing categories for income or expenses.
Nope, you should not need to do that. Everything should fit in here.
The only thing they're really going to be doing is adding to that property list.
Yep.
And if they add something in there, it will automatically add it to the drop-down menu for them.
Yep. So James's new house.
And then are you doing separate ones for LLCs? Because I noticed you got an LLC weird thing going on there too.
Yep. So you can put LLCs in here because your top level LLC will likely have expenses, right? If you have an LLC that has 4 properties and you have an umbrella policy, chances are high you pay that umbrella policy with the LLC top level account, right? So you can track stuff for your LLCs in here as well. So I just added that. We'll go back to the income tab and we will change this since it's James Orr was applying for the property. Oh, we want the house one. Should have brought a mouse tonight. So there's James' new house and he's late. So you just select it and now it will show up.
And so for like an LLC that owns 3 properties, you're not putting the expenses in the LLC unless it's LLC specific, not for the individual properties.
Correct. Yeah. All right. So can you guys in the back see that well enough? Okay, because I don't want to really zoom in beyond this. So what I wanted the spreadsheet to do is basically show me one property like the year in full. And so what you do, you need to type in the year. James is giving me grief because you used to have to type in how many days were in February in that year. Oh my gosh, 2 extra numbers. So you can literally take this drop down right here and you can select what property you would like to look at. So we can pick this property and all the data in this just changed. You didn't see it, but it did. And so you can easily see, hey, I didn't get rent from January through May, right? And then weirdly, I got $1,250 in June and then $1,500. You can have almost like a spot check, like, why is it $1,250? Oh yeah, that was prorated rent. I bought the property and they prorated rent for June, right? If you're paying the HOA every month and you don't see an HOA payment in here, did you forget to pay it or did you just forget to enter it, right?
And so you're having a separate spreadsheet file for each year.
Yes.
So every year you start over with a brand new file.
I mean, you're welcome to copy those tabs. But yes, you're having a separate spreadsheet for each year. Because the goal is, this is centered around filing taxes and tracking your business, right? I didn't build the one that like incorporates all the years back into one, because that's unnecessary. So we scroll down, right? You basically can see there's an income section, there's an expense section. We should have brought a mouse tonight.
Oh, is there a question?
And then you've got net income, so basically it's taking this for this. But you get every single category. You also get what's the percent of money I'm spending on each category, right? And then you get the total, which is the sum of everything, but then you also see month by month. So it's very easy to spot mistakes and things you missed. Yes?
So when you pay your HOA in January, does it take it across each month, or do you just do it
If you
in
wanted
the
to
month?
type it that way, you could. I do not, right? I say I paid $3,000, 115, $3,000, right? But if you really wanted to be like, well, I paid it, and you're going to enter 115, 215, 315, I wouldn't do that because I didn't really pay it then.
So that's how you would have to enter it on that spreadsheet?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
But I would not do that, right? So, because you didn't really pay it then. So part of this is, when did you actually pay it? And if you know you pay your HOA once a year, then that's great. And so like, I just got a special assessment for an HOA. So for me, I'd see one in January, and then I would know, oh, hey, I actually paid the special assessment as well, and I entered it. Any questions on this portion? We're going to be done early tonight.
So you could have been later.
Yep, you could have. So the next portion of the spreadsheet, which also comes in really handy, is as you change the property, this column will update. So I hope it doesn't reset me, but if I drop this down, if you watch these numbers, they will all change, right? So this is out of that income and expense tab. It is literally pulling all of the data just for this property that you've selected and showing you exactly what you spent on the same sheet. So you don't have to go back and go, oh, what did I spend? Why did I miss rent? You can't type anything in here to enter it. But it shows you really quickly, oh, yeah, there's rent for 6/1, 7/1, 8/1, 9/1, 10, 11, and 12. Good, I got all the rents. Oh, I forgot to enter November. Perfect, I can go back to the income tab and enter that.
And where's the pie chart? Is it on the next tab, or?
You're adding that when I send you the spreadsheet. Good luck guessing the password to unlock it.
There's no pie chart, guys.
Man. All those spreadsheet updates I did for you this year so far, and that's what I'm getting.
Sorry.
It's grief.
I feel like I'm being defensive about being late.
Oh, that's all right. You know what the solution is? Don't be late.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah. So this again is per property, right? Total and income expenses for the property you're looking at. And I give it to you, and this is all the properties, right? Income, expense, the next one is going to be different. So this actually takes into account, if you want to know what your profit with no CapEx is, and you want to know what your profit is otherwise, in this case, they're all negative because I have a lot of CapEx in the stuff I entered, and I only put a half year of rent in. But this basically you can see at a glance. This is my income. This is my expense. Hey, this property is doing okay. Monthly, it's this. Profit percentage is based off of what you actually put down for the property, which is on that drop-down list tab, where you entered, this is what I bought the property for, this is what I put down. That's pulling from that. So it shows you, hey, this is my current profit for the year, and this is my cash on cash. So if you want to know how your properties are doing, enter all your stuff in, and you'll have a really easy way to see it all in one chart. Any questions on that?
So what is the difference between the two profit percentages?
This does not have CapEx in it.
Okay.
That's why it says profit, no CapEx.
Got it. I just didn't realize the percentage one later was the same.
Yes, all of this is basically no CapEx.
That makes sense now. Do you keep a balance sheet? The question was, do you keep a balance sheet?
No.
The answer was no.
So like I said, I'll finish doing the spreadsheet, and then I'll explain what I do now. So the next section over is basically the same per property and then for all properties. So a lot of the times, if you want to start to cut expenses, you need to know where you're spending your money first. So this is the property, right? In this case, 9012 5th Street. You can see exactly by category where you spent stuff. This one is all properties combined. So if you want to look at it and you go, geez, I've spent a bunch on capital improvements, but I put a new roof on, so I know I need that. Hey, You know, legal and professional fees, what the heck? Like, why am I spending so much on that? Is that a one-off thing? Can I lower it? If there were a bunch of utilities in here, right? There's only $22.53 in utilities, but if you're paying utilities on a multifamily property, that could be really expensive. Can you start to bill some of that back if you're not? This is a way to actually look at your property as one, and then look at your portfolio as one, right? And I think that's important to understand, where are you actually spending your money on your properties, and where are you getting your money? So that is the end of that side of the spreadsheet. And so all this will update based on what you select. That will always be like that, and this section will always be the same. James.
So are you going to talk about like getting this to your CPA, or did you
Yep.
give a slide for that coming up?
It's coming.
And for those of you that are wondering why it keeps sliding over to the right, Brian has a 100-inch wide monitor. And so this is all on one screen on his monitor.
It is. This is a true statement. All right, let's see if we covered everything. Discuss drop-down menus. So the tax forms, I'm going to make a comparison on the next slide. Discuss tracking of properties on the drop-down sheet. We did that. We talked about the days in February just for James. We walked through everything, used the monthly view to catch mistakes, which I mentioned, and then total investment column. So we got it all. So whether you're doing a personal return or you're filing a partnership return, this is what you're filing for expenses, right? And if you notice, these all really nicely match up with the drop-down in the expenses category. So at the end of the year, you should technically be able to look at the spreadsheet, go to the expenses, and tell your CPA, here's the expenses. So what do I give? Here's what we do. First, tax time. Make sure your spreadsheet's up to date. 6 months you put off entering data, guess what you get to do now? You get to go enter data, right? Use this and then compile the information for the property. And this is literally how I send it to the CPA. I basically have the categories, right? Because they don't need the year data. They don't need to know when it came in. They just need the data of this is what you spent. So here's the income. Here's my expenses. Here's the categories. And then if you had mileage, write that down for them as well. That simple. So you should be able to take everything that was in your income and your expense and put it in one very simple spreadsheet like that and send it to your CPA. Any questions?
Wait, question.
So this spreadsheet doesn't integrate with your check register?
Nope.
Okay, so you'd have to go through every check, enter them in all your columns here.
No, you do it as it happens. That's the whole point. You keep up on it, right? And what are you writing checks for?
Most people are not writing checks.
Yeah. So normal entries for the month, rent, mortgage statement, maybe HOA, maybe utilities, right? You got 4 entries per month in most cases, right? Turnover time, you have a security deposit refund, a new security deposit, maybe some prorated rent, but that's like 1 month out of the year where you might have 3 or 4 extra entries. And then you paid somebody to put new carpet in, so you've got turnover costs as well. But outside of that, there aren't many things you're doing. Are you writing a lot of checks for stuff?
No, I have a very simple situation.
Sure.
2 units, you want to write a check for repair, I just write a check for repair, put it in Quicken.
Yep.
And then I can divide it out in the cash flow statement.
Yep, and so that's basically what this is. You would just take, hey, I wrote a repair check. You'd put, I wrote it on 7/23, 7/24. It was $23 for the plumber or whatever, $230 for the plumber. It's more like it, right? And then, boom, you're done, right? So you don't even, in a sense, you wouldn't even need to write it in your check register. You could actually just put your check number in the comment field. So you'll compile that for each property that you have. And you would also do this for the top level LLCs. Any LLC that has expenses or income, you also want to send that to your CPA. Your CPA is likely going to take that and spread it out across the properties that are in that LLC, but let them do that. Mortgage, this is the one that is different, right? So when you file your taxes, you don't get to deduct your entire mortgage payment because part of that's paying off principal. You only get to deduct the interest portion. So at the end of the year, you're going to get a statement from your lender that says, this is the interest you paid. You simply add that right here.
Is that
right?
the 1099 INT one? Or is that a different one?
It's usually a 1098.
1098.
Although for investment properties, they're not sending 1098s anymore. So whatever form you get or wherever you need to look on your bank, that's what you want to find is what you paid in interest. You'll notice there's no mortgage statement here, right? There's not a mortgage line. It's just mortgage interest. And so you have to do that one separately at the end of the year. Capital improvements. Call out. So for me, that little red thing is a comment. So when my CPA hovers over that, what will pop up is Unit 102, new floor, 7-1, $3,000. Unit 202, new paint, $1,495. You know, whatever date it was. You want to keep track of all that stuff because they're going to depreciate it based on the month it happened. Not only that, but if you install new carpet on June 1st of this year, a tenant moves in, totally trashes the carpet, and you have to recarpet it, all of the depreciation that was for that carpet can now be taken because you've reinstalled new carpet, right? So once you do that, you basically get to capture all that depreciation for the carpet immediately because you've now replaced it again, which is a bad thing to have happen, but it's nice at least on the tax side. But keep track of this, and that's much easier to do throughout the year as well. Mileage 2019 is 58 cents a mile, so it went up significantly. What?
Moving farther away is good.
Yes. If you are in a partnership, pay the mileage and any other things you need to pay out to partners prior to December 31st. Don't be like, oh yeah, we drove 3,000 miles and now we're going to pay it out in the next year. That is not how that works. You want to pay that out in the year that you drove it and the year you're going to file taxes. Yes.
Do you have any app suggestions for mileage tracking or any type of software you guys currently use to track mileage?
Royce definitely has some. I do not use one.
I use MileIQ.
There you go.
Microsoft product.
MileIQ is Microsoft now?
It is.
They were bought out? Nice.
Well, there you go. Just waiting for, oh, if you have a problem with Windows.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't even go there. So if not, you can just list his mileage and your CPA will take that, turn it into an amount, and basically deduct it. So no big deal. Like I said, pay any other items out to partners. Don't make it more painful than it needs to be.
So what are you talking about there? Because I'm not even sure I follow. You're saying...
You and I have a partnership.
Right, we do.
50-50.
Okay.
We're not 50-50.
Right, I
right?
own more.
I'm 100, you're 0. So we have a partnership, we're 50-50, right?
Okay. Yep.
And you drive to the property and we decide we're going to pay out mileage. So you drive 100 miles in the year and I drive 1,000 miles in the year.
Oh.
Prior to the end of the year, I need to actually, from that bank account for that property, write you a check for your 100 miles and write me a check for my 1,000 miles.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yes.
Oh, that's interesting.
You don't have to, but if you don't, then it basically gets written from the next year and they have to go back and go, oh, well, this is an expense. It's silly. So don't do that. Then give all of this to your CPA. So you kept your spreadsheet up all year. At the end of the year, you went in and you looked at each property. You typed this stuff in. Very simple. You sent that to your CPA, and they do your taxes, and you go home, right? So here's the depreciation tax form in case you haven't seen it. So all that little comment on the CapEx stuff, this is where that comes in handy. Your CPA is going to file depreciation for anything that can be depreciated. In this case, this was 2202 for new carpet. And you're looking at this going, oh, well, carpet's depreciated on the 5-year schedule. You don't need to know that. Your CPA will know that. They'll figure it out. But you'll notice this is half of it, right? Why is it half? This is a trick question if you know tax code.
For the first year, you only get half a year on those kinds of items.
So it's actually because you are actually allowed to take half of this immediately as an expense, depending on how you actually file based on the Safe Harbor Act. So trick question, but basically I'm only depreciating half and I get to take the other half as an expense immediately. You should discuss with your CPA what is right for you, right? All people do not do that. So depreciated over 5 years, that's basically it, right? And then there's other depreciation that's happening on this property that was filed on previous forms for the 27.5 years that you get to depreciate real property, right? That's what this number down here is.
Is there anyone interested in a class on accelerated depreciation for rental properties?
No one raise their hand. Please, no one raise their hand.
Did you have a question?
Yes.
Did I hand you the mic for no reason?
No, she has a question.
Do you have a spot in your spreadsheet for capital infusion and capital pulling out for the owners?
No. So if you have a partnership, I would just suggest in the thing you send to your CPA, if it's a partnership, that you say, hey, partners contributed this much and this much was withdrawn. But in many cases, it doesn't matter, right? I mean, it matters from a K1 perspective if you're actually having partners contribute, but it's not like if you're just moving stuff from a single member LLC to your higher level LLC, it washes out. So, for what?
The comment was
Yes.
it just matters for your balance sheet.
Yes,
And Brian
agreed.
said yes.
So documents to give to your CPA. This does not include your personal return. That's up to you. So all the settlement or HUD-1 statements that you bought or sold in that year, right? You bought or sold the property, your CPA is going to need to know about that. End of year mortgage statements. They are going to look at how much interest you paid and what the balance on the loan left is, most likely. All the 1098s showing the interest you paid. Bank account statement, both for beginning and end of year. Chances are high they already had the end of last year, so they really only need the end one for this year. Right?
Do they keep those, you think?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yep. Your operating agreement. So if you have a good CPA, they will read your operating agreement to understand how your business is supposed to work so they can correctly file your taxes. If your CPA did not read your operating agreement, find a new CPA. And Barbie is accepting clients at the end of class. I heard she's really good at the CPA thing too. I don't know. So all partners' names and social security numbers. So if you're in a partnership, your CPA is going to need this because they have to file the K-1s accordingly with all the social security numbers and the names of the partners and their addresses. I would suggest for your partner's safety that you have the partner call the CPA firm directly and give them their social security number. I would not transmit it through email, but it's up to you and your partners. They're going to need your EIN. This is the first year you're filing. Otherwise, they should have it. They're going to want your property management statement from the full year, right? Because that has almost all the information. And then the info from the spreadsheet that we just talked about on the last thing, and this includes all the CapEx stuff. Any questions on what you need to send to your CPA? James is at the ready. So, getting started with the spreadsheet, really simple, right? Enter the year on the property report tab. Don't enter the days in February because you don't need to anymore. That's just for James. On the drop-down list, go enter your property information, right? This will take you maybe 15, 20 minutes to go enter your properties, depending on how many properties you have. And then go back to January from this year and start entering your property data. And you're like, oh, that sucks. Yes, but once you're done, you're going to be like, I can see a view of my property and how well it's doing, which you may or may not have now. And if you don't have it now, I'd encourage you that this is pretty important. And that's it. Your property report tab now shows all your data. So that's the end of class, the earliest I've ever finished.
Wow.
I'm not really done.
I made up for it last week when I went over.
Yeah, so just for the record, I'm not really done. So
He's going to go to like 9:30 now.
yeah, sorry. I'm now going to teach you a class on something different. Yeah, what was it that night?
This is the second class.
Yeah, this is the second class. I taught two. Remember that day I taught like, what was it? It was like buying off-market deals or something, and then I taught a whole other class after that. It was like a bonus. So that's what I did, right? You can now see I started, I bought a few properties, I made my own spreadsheet, I basically tracked everything myself. Then I went to a property manager, and I really went away from the spreadsheet after about a year because it wasn't doing me much good, and I wasn't going to take the big property management statement from every month and go enter all those items. That didn't make any sense. They're already tracking it. They already have a view that's very similar to the page on the spreadsheet. Right? They already have this view for you in the property management statement. So you don't need to recreate it. So what happens is I let the property management company do their thing for the year. I send my CPA that statement, and then I send that same little snippet, but it only has like, hey, I got, an HOA payment of $3,000, and I tell them what the CapEx was from the property management statement, but that's about all I send them. It's like, and then they will combine the property management statement with my 2 or 3 extra things, and then it's done. So it's fairly straightforward and fairly simple, whether you're having it managed or you're managing it yourself. Either way works, and if you want to track it all in the spreadsheet, go for it, right? I would suggest if you've never managed your properties, maybe inputting all those expenses, and you're like, hey, why does it cost $200 to install 2 GFCIs? That doesn't seem right. And then you ask your property manager, why did it cost this much? And then you learn about what you're being charged for. So there's multiple benefits if you're new to entering everything in the spreadsheet. But I think as you progress, you'll either hire a bookkeeper, right, to do this all for you, or you'll just let your CPA combine the property management statement with the few expenses that you have that are separate outside the property manager. Does that make sense? So that's the second class.
Okay.
Any questions?
That's good.
We got a lot of time for questions.
And if we don't have questions on this, we can open it up to just questions in general. Anything you want to know about Brian?
Yep.
Personal or business?
Sure.
This is your chance.
Does anyone have questions on this stuff?
How do we get to your spreadsheet?
How do they
question
get the spreadsheet, James?
I really don't know.
Email
where it is.
James or
yeah, email me and I will have to figure out where it is. I still haven't gotten the new deal analysis spreadsheet up.
Yeah, that's
5
you're
months
late
ago.
to that game.
I know, no doubt.
It's like being late to here.
That was like my birthday, so it was like back in whatever that was, January, February.
Yeah, so James should put it up, and maybe you should just send it out in one of the mails.
Yeah, I'll probably do an email. Is anyone not getting email from me? You wouldn't have gotten any this week because I didn't send any this week, but you would have got like 7 from me last week. Did you guys get emails last week?
I see how it is.
I forgot. I was like, oh my gosh, it's Wednesday tonight. I got class.
Yeah.
So
when did you remember that? 5:45?
pretty close. Is there anyone not getting emails from me? You're not getting emails? Are you on Meetup? Did you turn off notifications? Don't know the answer to that.
Yeah. Once you unsubscribe, you get none of them anymore.
That's right. I had to forward one to Brian because he was mentioned in it.
He's like, I talked about you in the email. I'm like, I don't get them anymore. Forward. So.
I'm lying. I get them.
Oh, you get them?
Yep.
Okay.
See, we resolved.
Resolved.
Check.
Tech support done.
So does this make sense? Does anyone think they would actually use this over what they're using now?
Oh, there you go.
So you use it now, right? How does it work? How long have you used it?
We used it for 2018, went back and put stuff in it.
Okay.
For the microphone, she said it's horrible. She doesn't like using it at all.
It's not what she said.
We've used it for 2019 as well, and it just makes it really easy to be able to look back and see it all in one place. And I think for us, it's just more about awareness than anything, too. I think.
And you're managing your own properties?
Yes.
Yeah. And how much time do you think you spent on did you adopt it like in July of 2018 after I taught the class?
Yeah.
So like how long did it take you to go back and put in your 6 months of data?
It probably only took like an hour or two and that was when we were still kind of figuring it out. So now it hardly takes any time. You just put in the expenses and the mortgage payment and rent as it comes in. So
And like
I think
a month, how much do you spend in time? Like 10 minutes or 22 hours or?
15 minutes. It's not.
And what do you do with the data? Like, do you look at this every month or like every quarter or at the end of the year? Or when do you look at this and look for kind of how your property's running?
I'd probably say every like 2 months, unless it's, a month that was unusual expenses or that kind of thing, but probably every 2 months or so.
Cool. So there you go. I owe them money.
Yeah. For that endorsement. 1 second.
Yep.
Should we be keeping track of our first property if we're doing the nomad type situation, or does it not really count if it's not an investment property?
Yeah, you can't count it as an investment property until you move out and you have it rented. But I would put your information in, like you buy it, fill out the one line, right? Add your drop down, and then when you move out, it's ready to go. Just like the asset protection class is like, you have a year to get ready after you buy your first nomad in order to set everything up, the trust, the LLC, the EIN, all that stuff. You got a year to do it. So I would do this up front, and then you're ready to go.
So should we keep track of expenses that we put into that property, or?
Not unless your CPA is somehow using them for a deduction based on something else.
Yes, I was going to ask about that. If you're buying something while you're living there, but it's going to be for the rental, I almost wonder if that's considered. Like I don't know about appliances.
You're going to use them, right?
Yeah. I'm just wondering as far as just, I guess, keeping track of what you put into the property, the amount of, you know what I mean?
I would not do that in this spreadsheet because this spreadsheet is really designed for you sending it to your CPA. If you want to add like a column or put it in, hey, this is my down payment, and then I also paid $3,000 extra, instead of your down payment of $15,000, put $15,000 plus $3,000. Make a little comment on the thing that says these were appliances and new flooring or whatever. That way you know what you've put into it, so you can calculate your cash on cash return. Right. Yeah.
What if you have roommates? Because then it's technically part rental, part.
So for a house hack, then we should be.
Yes.
Yes. If you have roommates, then it is an investment then. And
yes.
You have to tell your CPA like what percentage
of the house
your house is actually considered investment, and what part is off limit to your other. I guess roommates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember filing that like a long time ago, where I just calculated it myself and did that
What,
when I
you had
filed my
roommates?
taxes. We missed it.
Oh, it was off mic.
Ah, man.
You had roommates?
Yeah, a long time ago, like in '99.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and so it was like this was that person's specific room, and then we shared a portion of this part of the house, and so you calculate what part of that is the investment and give that to your CPA as well.
So is Tammy considered a roommate, or probably not, huh?
Do you like being married?
Yeah, this is probably problematic. Yeah, well, probably won't do that.
Are my kids roommates? Bet you're sorry your kids moved out.
I think they may move back. We'll see.
Yeah. Any other questions on this?
Look at this is crazy.
I know.
Like-
Do you want to stop the recording and then we take other questions?
Yeah, let's do it.